So, I did it. I killed my Dungeons and Dragons game. It is destroyed. Now, technically it wasn't my D&D game. I wasn't the dungeon master. I was just a player. So it's a little presumptuous of me to declare it my game. But I claim ownership of it because I'm the one that destroyed it. And it's just like they say, you break it, you bought it. Now, I don't feel good about this. Pretty much the opposite, really. I'm pretty embarrassed. But it happened, and I want to share that story of why with you. Though I'm nervous in doing so because you are going to judge me for this. But maybe there'll be a lesson in here that you can take away too. So, at the end of the day, hopefully, there'll be some good in the world after all of this. At least, I hope so. Otherwise, you're just going to hate me, and that'll be that. So I've been playing RPGs for decades now, some of which are Dungeons and Dragons. But truth be told, I find myself DMing the old D&D more often than playing. So what a refreshing change it was to receive an invitation from a dear friend to play in their very first campaign that they were going to be the DM for. They were a DM virgin, about to be sacrificed. And it started off really well. We did the usual. We had a session 0. This ain't our first rodeo after all. We're not eggs, people that don't know what's what. I should have said potatoes. We're not potatoes. I should have said that. We did a pretty standard session 0 is my point. Anyway, we met up. We decided what classes we were all going to play, the relationships between our characters, and whether or not scaly fetish content would be allowable in the group chat. It wasn't. Just a standard session 0. But then, something magical happened. It went really well. A little too well, in fact. See, we were asked to make characters that were connected to this dwarven city that was ruled by a cruel, oppressive warlord. And I wanted to play a human, so I proposed that my character, De Giles, lived in a human majority city that was near to the dwarven city. One that served to supply the dwarves with vital goods and trade. Essentially, I wanted to be from Deal rather than Erebor. And the DM was totally happy with this, so I got to work creating my new character. And because I wanted my thief to be properly connected to the dwarf city as per DM instructions, I gave De Giles the backstory of a smuggler and a would-be crime kingpin. Essentially a ne'er-do-well that was moving illicit goods from the human city to the dwarven one. Perfect. A star. Full marks for investment in any potential adventure relating to said dwarven city. I'd pat myself on the back, but I need this one to gesticulate. And this idea was interesting to the other players, and they wanted a piece of the action pie too. And as a group, we began to contrive a group identity that we would all be members of a gang, like the Peaky Blinders or the Teletubbies. And before too long, we had a gang. We had an extremely unintelligent sorcerer who was basically a dumb lackey that would do whatever they were told. We had a cleric accountant with a proficiency in cooking, if you know what I mean. And a sweaty dwarf fighter who broke people's knees with a hammer, aka our compliance officer. Now, that might not sound like a traditional party prone to whimsical adventures like rescuing damsels from evil dragons, and you would be right. From the very beginning, there was a little bit of a disconnect between us, the players, and the DM's conception of what the game was all about. We had built a party of ne'er-do-wells, rogues, thugs, scumbags, and a particularly sweaty dwarf. We, as a group, sort of intended on lurking around alleyways and asking passerbys if they had the time. And we didn't want to know what time it was. On the DM side, though, they had built the Dungeons and Dragons adventure on the basis that we were, I guess, adventurers. And there were some red flags pretty early on that this was all going to go awry. For example, our first quest was to investigate an ancient wizard's tower in the countryside. Rumors abounded about an ancient curse that had driven the owner mad and that an evil monster now resided at the top of the tower. And lured by the promise of a big score, we went. We took our horse and cart and some tools, more on that later, and we left the city, venturing to the wizard's tower. It is a dark and stormy evening as you arrive. Lightning strikes nearby, and you all shiver at the sound of an eerie howl carried by the wind. Even the dark tower that climbs high into the clouds before you looks inviting at this dark hour, though with a shudder you note no light resides within that haunting place, save for a single ghoulish green glow that emerges from the very highest window. Seeking shelter, you open the thick, heavy door to enter, and a creak echoes through the seemingly empty halls before you. Thick, golden chandeliers hang loosely from the ceiling of the once lavish entrance hall. The tallows of candles long burnt away. It seems you'll have to go about your ghastly business here in the dark. Okay, I take an appraise roll.
I'm sorry, what?
I take an appraise check on the chandeliers. You said they're made out of gold. Is that solid or gilded? Oh, give me a roll. Okay. Ooh, 19.
Oh, yeah, they're made out of solid gold.
All right, boys, get the crowbars. We just hit the jackpot. Let's get to work.
An eerie green glow emerges from up the... Never mind.
Yeah, so we didn't go into the top of the tower and investigate. We didn't fight the monster or whatever was up there. Instead, we spent the entire session ripping down chandeliers, prying priceless paintings from their gilded frames, and stripping the lead from the roof. And don't get me wrong, we did fight a few monsters. I think there was a ghoul hiding under a bed. But ultimately, we just didn't have a lot of interest in investigating what dark curse lay upon the Wizard's Tower because, well, it turns out there's a lot of money to be found in a Wizard's Tower and not so much in curses, and we know how to quit when we were ahead. I guess those children's bones or whatever remain blasphemously interred to this day. And so we returned to the city with a filled cart of around 250 pounds worth of scrap and valuable metal. Job's a good un, boss. By the way, people really overlook the value of the appraise skill. And then things just escalated from there. We started using the illicit proceeds of selling our loot in bribing the corrupt officials of both the Dwarven and human cities so they would turn a blind eye to our budding criminal empire, which was easy to do because the whole system was corrupt from top to bottom, a situation that suited us pretty well. Sure hope that doesn't change. Foreshadowing. Yeah, see, because this is where we collided head on with the DM's adventure, and it got messy. See, none of this Peaky Blinders Teletubbies business had been anticipated by the DM, but it was time for us to get back on track. The party received a letter from our resident quest giver, for lack of a better term, with another quest. Why he came back to us, I have no idea. We did not do a very good job of resolving that haunted tower. It was still haunted, just less of a tower now. But this quest giver wanted us to join a popular uprising that was taking place in the Dwarven City against the evil dwarf overlord. And he was prepared to pay us some money if we did so. Now, I have to empathize right now. Our party was on the whole pretty pro-overlord. We didn't really care about the oppression of the dwarven soap makers or mass crimes against meta-humanity. We actually had some friends in the evil dwarven government, and we made money from those connections. We kind of liked the corruption, actually. So when the quest giver tried to appeal to our better natures, it sort of fell on deaf ears. But look, here's the thing. Between you and me, I suspect that the DM's plan was to always have us going up against the evil dwarf overlord, right? I think that was the entire intention of this adventure. The DM wanted us to be plucky rebels against the system, and they were now basically asking the party, through their NPC, to get back onto the adventure path. The problem, though, was that they didn't just tell us this up front, out of character. They did this through an NPC. So we did what any self-respecting gang of thugs would do when presented with a very dangerous job. We asked for lots and lots of money. Just on a punt. Would they give us it? Let's find out. And even better, the quest giver said that we'd need to talk with the leader of the rebellion about that, and that he would arrange for us to meet. Oh! Cha-ching! My character immediately saw dollar signs, or the local currency equivalent. GBP, gold bullion pieces. Regardless, we instantly agreed to this meet. And a date was set. Next session, we'd get to meet the most wanted dwarf in all the land. And for a moment, the DM was so happy. We were back on track. So all's well that ends well, right? Well, you'd think so, but no. Because our party all agreed to betray the rebellion instantly. And we hatched a plan that when we met the presumably shorter, beardier Mon Mothma in charge of the Dwarf Rebellion in the next session, that we'd kidnap her, hand her over to the evil Dwarf Overlord for an appropriate fee, and make plenty of friends in the evil Dwarf government, allowing us a firm foundation for our evil criminal empire. And then, not only that, creme de la creme, we'd also retain any money that Mon Mothma had brought to entice us to her side. We'd just steal it. We'd just take the money. I'm sure there'd be guards with Mon Mothma or whatever, but we just hired a bunch of thugs. A good old pipe-swinging goon squad, surprisingly cheap as well. Sounds great, right? Win-win for everybody, barring a few notable exceptions. And we made this plan pretty clear to the DM as we were making it, and the DM was not on board, to put it mildly. So not on board, in fact, that all of the friendly criminal NPCs that we brought with us to help kidnap Mon Mothma betrayed us for no discernible reason, and my character was killed in the ensuing fight in a session that I wasn't present for. It just happened off screen. I just came back the following week to be told that my character was dead. And then the game ended. It just died, for lack of a better term. There was nowhere left for us to go. It wasn't satisfying for anybody. And the DM was so disheartened by all of this game that they had spent weeks, months, potentially years planning. They just cancelled the game. And to my knowledge, they have never, ever run one since. So yeah, I feel really, really bad about that. But I think that there's a couple of lessons here to be gleaned. Firstly, always bring a ladder. You never know when you're gonna need a ladder. Also, cart and horse, very useful for carrying lots and lots of gold. But on the player's side, out of character, I think to be learned here is that sometimes you do need to acknowledge that this is a game. This is something I did not do. You're here to play the game and have fun. Sometimes the verisimilitude of what your character might do needs to take a back seat. Unless everyone is there explicitly just to explore the role-playing opportunities of your character sheet. In other words, sometimes when you're signed up for Dungeons & Dragons, you gotta go into the dungeon and fight the dragon. We didn't do that. We were so preoccupied trying to find out whether we could build a massive criminal empire, we didn't stop to think if we should. And we probably shouldn't have, honestly. Could have been fun for one game, not for this one. And in hindsight, this was a new DM. They just wanted to run a classic D&D adventure. We should have worked harder to give it to them. Now on the DM side, I gotta say, if you have an idea for how you anticipate the game going, tell the players. This entire story did not occur over a year's time. It was a relatively short game. Had the DM told us from the get-go that they wanted to do a game focused on a party of plucky rebels, then we would have made very different characters. I imagine the sweaty dwarf probably would have been pretty unchanged. That character crops up a lot, but I would have made some changes to my character, certainly. I think a thing the DMs always forget is that D&D isn't a book or a TV show. You shouldn't hide twists or expect your characters to unconsciously go along with breadcrumbs or tropes that you leave. Because the players are active collaborators in the story, not audience members, and they will do things that you don't anticipate. If you want them to behave in a certain way, or try and hit a certain tone, or roleplay in a specific way, you gotta tell them explicitly, out of character. Seriously though, I can't emphasize enough that DMs should not hide early game twists. The only exception is like if it's a Call of Cthulhu one-shot. But otherwise, people sort of don't really like twists, like this one, for example. Why are you playing D&D anyways when there's these 5 incredible games that you need to play, or else I'll come round to your house and spill your milk. And there's no point crying about it because I'll just repeat the proverb at ya. Oh, and check out my Patreon if you want to support the channel. Big thanks to Sonic Bread and CryptoKev, and I'll see y'all next time. Bye-bye.